Thank you, sir.
You ready? All right, people, this is not a Viva on the street. This is Viva on a snowmobile trail. It's spring break in Quebec, and it's still winter in Quebec. This is an update on a story we've been covering from the beginning, which is the arrest and continued detainment of Tamara Lich and Pat King, two of the alleged organizers of the Freedom Convoy 2022 protest, which saw thousands, if not 10,000s of big rig trucks, protesters, drive up on Parliament Hill, park their cars and trucks on Parliament Hill for upwards of 3 weeks until Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act for the first time in Canadian history to suppress what he described as a violent, extremist, anti-black, racist, transphobic, misogynistic, anti-Semitic protest. 3 weeks of what was, without a doubt, perhaps disruptive, but the most peaceful protest you had ever seen. If anybody has any doubts, you can go back and watch my 40 hours of live stream documenting of this protest. Justin Trudeau, after 3 weeks of this protest, decides it's a national emergency, warranting the invocation of the Emergencies Act for the first time in Canadian history. It used to be called the War Measures Act. That had been invoked, from what I understand, twice in Canadian history. Once by Justin Trudeau's father. They invoked the Emergencies Act, and this peaceful protest, which did not see an ounce of violence in the 3 weeks that it was there, all of a sudden got violent. Police came in, busted up the protest, busted up protesters, literally. We've all seen the footage now. And arrested some of the alleged organizers of the protest on charges of mischief, inciting mischief, counseling to commit mischief. Basically charges that are mischief or mischief-oriented in and of themselves. Under Canadian law, mischief is sort of a hybrid charge. It could be an offense punishable on summary conviction, which is a not serious type, or an indictable offense, which is serious mischief. Justin Trudeau arrests, or sorry, I should say his police arrest two of the alleged organizers of the protest, Tamara Lich and Pat King, and they have been detained since their arrest. It will be 2 weeks tomorrow for Tamara Lich, and I think about the same for Pat King. Detention, pre-trial detention, no bail granted, no release granted for charges of mischief or inciting mischief. Pat King had a hearing on his bail. Judge says, if I release you, it's going to impugn the judicial system. It's going to cause people to question the judicial system. He's still in jail, even though the judge recognized he could be in pretrial detention for longer than he would be if he gets convicted of mischief. Tamara Lich had a second hearing because her first hearing for bail was also refused. Despite the fact that she had agreed to undertake to respect the conditions, continued detainment. After the Emergencies Act was rescinded by Justin Trudeau, before it could be ratified or rejected by the Senate because it had been approved by the House of Commons, after he rescinded it, it seems that, Tamara Lich got a second kick at the bail can and had another hearing yesterday to argue for why she should be released from pretrial detention. She had already been in detention for 12 days. Why she should be released on charges of mischief. And David Anber, who's an Ottawa attorney who's representing some of the protesters who have been roughed up by the cops, gotten tickets, etc., he was live tweeting following the hearing. And the hearing, to say that it will cause people to lose faith in the judicial system is an understatement. People have been referring to Pat King and Tamara Lich as political prisoners. You know, growing up, I always gave that concept a very serious meaning. Like, you think of political prisoners, you think China, you think North Korea, you think Russia, you don't think Canada. You don't think that people would actually be detained in jail without being released on bail for charges of mischief. And yet, lo and behold, that's what we have here, because this entire situation is so politicized that people, common citizens, actually think it's justified to continue to detain people who are, in the legal sense, innocent. Innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. These people are innocent, legally speaking. They may be found guilty, but for the time being, we are talking about continued, indefinite detainment of people who are legally innocent on charges of mischief. Bear in mind that other people, other individuals who may or may not have driven a vehicle into 4 protesters and then fled the scene were given bail. Bear in mind other people who were accused of having committed very serious violent crimes, drug-related crimes, get released on bail. And there were lawyers in the hearings for some of these people saying they had never seen such onerous bail conditions imposed on drug dealers or alleged murderers compared to what they were imposing on these alleged organizers of what until now is nonetheless a lawful protest, despite what politicians say. The politicians are calling this an illegal protest, yet that injunction court order said that so long as the protesters respect the court order, they are within their rights to protest peacefully and lawfully. And there has been no order to the contrary as of yet. So setting all that aside, David Anber was live tweeting, watching the hearing. And what he was describing will cause regular, open-minded people with a sense of justice to lose faith in the judicial system. They brought Tamara Lich in with chains on her feet. I made a joke that she's arrested on mischief and she's being treated like Hannibal Lecter. According to David Anber's tweets, she was brought in with shackles. The judge had to order the shackles to be removed because the prosecution apparently thought it was appropriate and warranted to continue to hold her in shackles on her feet, charges of mischief. And they're arguing for the terms of release of Tamara Lich on these charges where she's already been in jail for 12 days. Now, it was a CTV journalist, I would say journalist, but I don't have my second hand, who took to Twitter to accuse another blue checkmark on Twitter of providing misinformation because that individual said indefinite jailing of someone accused of mischief should be outrageous. And then this journalist, his name is Kevin something, says, that's misinformation. She's not indefinitely jailed. Why, she's having her bail hearing today. To which I said, 12 days in pretrial detention on mischief charges is indefinite detention, regardless of whether or not she gets out. Indefinite detention is not permanent detention. So even if she gets out, which she should, she will nonetheless have been indefinitely detained on charges of mischief. So whatever, I called out that individual. And my goodness, did his tweet not age well? Because they argued all day yesterday for the release of Tamara Lich via her defense attorneys. Prosecution argued all day that pretrial detention is necessary. The judge said, I've got to sit on this. I've been sitting since 9 o'clock this morning. I've got other obligations for the rest of the week. I'm going to render judgment on Monday. That will be over 2 weeks. It'll be 2.5 weeks after Tamara Lich was arrested on mischief charges, 2.5 weeks in jail. And these justices, these politicians want to talk about preserving the integrity of the judicial system. This is Canada's January 6th, not in terms of the event, but in terms of the weaponizing and malicious prosecution of the accused. These people are accused of non-violent crimes. They have been detained for 2 weeks because this is a political crime. They embarrassed the administration by having the most peaceful protest you can possibly imagine for 3 weeks, starting an international movement of support. They're being punished for that right now, for organizing the protest. So that is the latest update now. Tamara Lich is still going to be in jail until Monday when the judge comes down with his ruling. And I've got to tell you, I'm a little discouraged because if the judge were going to release Tamara Lich, I think he would have been compelled or felt compelled to do it and then render the decision as to why later on. The fact that he's not leads me to believe that he might not be releasing Tamara Lich and has to draft a very, thorough, well-reasoned, and I would dare say politically motivated decision as to how the pretrial detention of Tamara Lich can possibly be justified in a free, democratic Western society. My opinion, it can't. It cannot, and it's impossible to. And anybody seeking to try to justify this either works for CTV or other state-funded media, or is just so politically blinded by all of this that they think anything goes if it happens to your adversary, without thinking that one day they might just come for you. So that is the update on Tamara Lich. We'll be following up. I've got news. It'll come out as any news comes out. You know what to do if you like my channel. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Drop a comment, share away. Winston, what do you have to say? If you do not fight for justice everywhere, you are not fighting for justice anywhere. And it's not because you don't like what someone has to say that you should not defend the right to say it, because history can teach you one thing if you're paying attention. It's only a matter of time before they come for you. With that said, booyah. Peace out, peeps.
Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, where we talk about how things, whether it is comfortable or not. We think these conversations are necessary and important. We think that having different opinions is crucial to a healthy discourse. So please, sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy.
Hey, William. Get
Howdy.
comfortable.
Comfortable?
Hey, in a world as crazy as the one we live in, every once in a while you need to laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
True. Just a little.
And I am like way lower than you. We never even looked at this today.
I can move my camera. That's not difficult. It's also possible that I bumped it over the course of the week.
I can move mine too, but it's way easier for you to use yours, I think.
Oh yeah, mine's quite easy to move.
The world we live in has gone crazy. I'm going to move mine. Just hold on. You can talk for a moment. I'm going to move my camera just a sec.
Okay. The world that we live in, right, has gone quite crazy, as apparent by the video that we just showed. We're gonna talk about that video. We're gonna talk about some of the. I'd go so far as to call it the fallout of the Freedom Convoy 2022 in Canada and in Ottawa. I've got a lot of things I want to talk about with this video that Dave needs to be here for, because I do want to offer some pushback on some portions of the video, but not necessarily for the news with which it's reporting, but more the statements made by the individual reporting it as opposed to the actual news itself. We're going to show some videos of some of the leadership in the protest as they were arrested and talk about their arrests and their current, still, as far as we know, detainment. And we might briefly touch on the current crisis in Ukraine, but there's not a whole lot we can say about that hasn't already been said.
Hey.
But it's current. It's topical. Hey.
I'm sort of higher than you now.
I think part of it is that I'm zoomed in a bit more.
Yeah. It's all good. So I didn't hear what you had to say. I'm sure it was very enlightening and full of wisdom.
I was giving a brief rundown of what we're planning on talking about tonight. A preview, so to speak.
So before we do that, we should mention those who support our show and those who are able to support our show.
Yes, we should.
If you like our show and you want to support us, you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show. And for the price of an American cup of coffee, $5, you can support the show. And we'd appreciate it. But we also have our sponsors that we want to say thank you to. You go first. You can take your pick.
We are sponsored by Stitch with Susan for all of your quilting and quilt hobbyist needs. If you're someone who already enjoys quilting or would like to get into it, we highly recommend checking out stitchbysusan.com. She's also very active on Instagram and I believe YouTube and Facebook. I'm not sure about Facebook anymore.
All of the above.
The eponymous Susan, who runs stitchbysusan.com, also has a lovely podcast, Measure Twice, Cut Once.
Oh, you got it right this time.
I did, which is the most wonderful, just heartwarming podcast. We highly, it is much less doom and gloom than ours, and we highly recommend checking it out. And we really appreciate her being a longtime sponsor of the show.
And the other one is Northern Truss. For all your roof and floor systems, go to Northern Truss in Fort St. John. Ask for Mallory or Doug or William.
Don't ask for me.
Don't ask for you. You don't know nothing?
No, don't ask for me.
Or Kyle. And they'd be glad to help you get a roof on your building and a floor under your feet. And you don't have to know the phone number, do you?
No, I don't.
No, I didn't think so.
Usually we have a slide for that, but today we don't.
If you Google Northern Truss Fort St. John, it'll be the first thing that comes up.
I think it applies to most businesses, really.
So here's a piece of trivia for you. There's a business I was working at here recently, and we got to looking at their expenses, and they still are. Well, up until the month of January, they were buying ads in the Yellow Pages. Actual ads in the Yellow Pages. I don't
Little
think
out of
that's
date.
exactly true, Kyle. I'm pretty sure you know something. We're just not sure what.
You threw him under the bus there.
We did. If you know the phone number, Kyle, you can enter it in the chat so everybody knows how to get a hold of you. I know it's 250-785, and I believe it's 3033 if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong.
Someday we'll learn how to do ad spots better.
Oh, no, we create mystery and intrigue, so they have to Google it.
This is true. This is true.
So, yeah, so how was your week?
My week's been okay. I actually got to work some this week, which was nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I do enjoy working. It's funny. You lament working while you're doing it, and then when you stop doing it, all of a sudden you miss it,
Oh, no, I
or at
never
least
lament
miss the
working.
activity.
I love working. I could watch it all day. I bet you didn't see that coming.
No. But other than that, it's been a week. It's been, I mean, on an existential level, kind of terrifying watching the whole Ukraine crisis unfold as it has been. These are the things we talk about. What's the quote from Lord of the Rings? I wish this had never happened to me or happened in my time. And Gandalf's response is, "So do all who think, or so do all who live to see such times." That's not
Yes.
for them to decide. All they can decide is what to do with the time that's given them. Obviously, that's a very
Yes.
lofty quote for me, who's sitting in North America watching Ukraine burn. But
It's true, though.
yeah, it's scary times,
It is
but
true.
scary times happen all the time. And we just have to buckle up and find a way through.
Yeah.
If you find yourself going through hell, keep going.
There's a country song.
Yes.
So, yeah, so we have a bit to talk about this week because for those of you who tuned in the or for the countdown, we were there's a video I watched earlier this morning or yesterday actually. I think I watched it, and it's a blogger, YouTuber in, I believe he lives in Quebec, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. He lives in Quebec, but he spent a fair amount of time in Ottawa during the protests, live streaming them.
Yes,
which was
over
wonderful.
40 hours, yes.
Yeah, he was one of the YouTubers that we spent a lot of time watching over the course of that
Yes.
That whole time frame.
He's a lawyer, or he was a lawyer before he became a YouTuber, so he has a bit of legal knowledge, and it made me a little bit more curious as to the actions of the court system in Canada with the arrest of the organizers of the protest in Ottawa. And
yeah.
I'm being really gentle when I say that because I've always been a little bit miffed about it. But
well, I feel like, so I'm going to offer pushback on his video that we watched. If you haven't watched it, we highly recommend, I mean, maybe don't pause it while we're doing this live, but go back and watch it after we're done so you see what we're talking about, or if you didn't catch it during the beginning of the live stream.
The link will be in the description after the show.
Yeah. Yeah, you can either watch the beginning of our episode or follow the link and give him the view. I feel like that's the least we can do. Yes. We didn't actually manage to get a hold of him to ask for permission to use it, but I feel like under the circumstances, we're going to go ahead, and I feel like he would support us sharing that. He's a big proponent of free speech.
Yes.
I want to go on record before I push back and say that everything in terms of like the factual events that he's talking about and the raw opinions of those events. So, people like Tamara, who is one of the organizers of Freedom 2022 or the Freedom Convoy 2022, after her arrest, as of yesterday, it's been 12 days that she's been in prison with no bail on a mischief and plots to commit or counseling to commit mischief. They're barely crimes. They're barely indictable offenses. And there are people who have literally, as he referenced in the video, people like the gentleman who drove his car into a crowd in Charlottesville had a shorter time in prison without bail. Like it's atrocious, utterly atrocious. And the only assumption that I can make is that it's literally just a ploy to keep them in prison as long as possible, to keep them shut up and or to punish them as much as possible before they actually get to a hearing and get slapped on the wrist for nothing. Because that's all that's going to happen at most they're going to get a misdemeanor. They've already spent more time in jail than they're likely to spend once they find out that they're guilty. So I think it's a ploy to just keep them locked up as long as they can to make it hurt as much as it can to discourage people from doing it again. That all I agree with. I don't see any reason to think that's incorrect. Where I draw issue with his video isn't actually in the news that he's talking about, but some of his takeaways from the news, like how he talks about anyone who thinks they can defend those actions is obviously an employee of CTV or something to that effect. That kind of, if you don't see it the way I see it, you're obviously an idiot kind of line of thinking, I think is horrible. I think that is detrimental to any kind of constructive discussion or seeking of truth. That kind of saying of, I've figured it out. If you don't think the same way I think, you're obviously wrong. And why would anyone listen to you? No one should trust you. And there's a logical fallacy. There's a term for it, and I can't think what it is. But it's an us or them mentality. And I don't like it. And I really especially take umbrage with the term he used at the very end of his video, where he said that if you're not fighting for freedom everywhere, then you're not fighting for it anywhere. And that's, I'm going to go ahead and use it early. That's bullshit. You can't fight for freedom everywhere. You can't fight every cause. And just because you don't fight every cause doesn't mean you're not fighting for one cause.
I'm going to pause you. I have you on the screen, and I can't change it. So I'm not on the screen. So all you're going to get from me is a disembodied voice. I can't change and play the videos. I'm working on it and behind the scenes. So I'll be muted. You're going to carry it for a little while, and I'll come back as soon as I can.
I'll continue on with my little rant. He talks about, he briefly mentions at the end how much he cares about free speech and hearing the voices of people, even the ones we disagree with. And I agree. But what he's doing with statements like that, he's encouraging free speech in the same way that he says that you can only, allow these heinous acts when they're in support of something that you support. And he's throwing that accusation at the left, how the left is only okay with these things happening because it's happening in their favor. He's kind of doing the same thing in the sense that he's saying free speech is important, but if you're saying something different from me, then you're an idiot. That's not encouraging free speech. It's allowing free speech, sure, but it's discouraging it, not as aggressively as the government's doing, obviously, right now, but it is still antithetical, I think, to the message that he wants to push, or that he seems to champion. And I think it's a good message. I think championing that message is valid. I just think that he's being a poor representative of it, if that makes sense.
So it does, and you're going to get my disembodied voice. I'm going to end the stream, and we're going to come right back.
Okay.
As I don't know what else to do because I can't change anything. So I'm going to try to end the screen, and hopefully we'll come right into this one again. So.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be right back, guys.